What is going on, my friends? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, turning the page to 2021 and February 1st. We are in the month of February. Hard to believe, right? We are cruising right along. I know you missed us, but we're back with some SEC Insider. And my buddy Tom Green's going to join us here to kind of break things down. We want to talk a little bit about the state of Auburn football, where we're at right now with new head coach Bryan Harsin as we get ready to embark on this new era at Auburn. And of course, signing day is on Wednesday. So he's pulling in some commits, and then we'll get a little bit into the Senior Bowl. Kj Britt, obviously the only competitor there for Auburn. And then lastly, we'll talk a little hoops, but we'll start with the state of Auburn football. So just first and foremost, before we get into the recruits, how would you say the first few weeks as a new head football coach has gone for Bryan Harsin thus far?
Well, I certainly think it's been a hectic month or so for Bryan Harsin. He had to put together a completely new staff, kind of get everything in order so he could start kind of building his vision for this program. It took him about the first full month to complete his staff, and then he quickly lost a member of that staff with Tracy Rocker going off to the Philadelphia Eagles, and then he quickly replaced him a couple days later. So it's certainly been busy, and now that he's kind of got everything in order, they started winter workouts last week. Spring practice is about a month and a half away. They got to close for signing day here in the next couple of days, and even after that, it's going to be a lot of recruiting because their class might not be complete by Wednesday. They might hit the transfer market to add a few guys, but we've started the last few days, especially on the recruiting front, with 4 new commitments since Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, so going down the list of those commitments, it was kind of one after the other, and of course the first one coming in on Saturday of those 4, and then we had 2 come in today, right? So yeah, just take us down the list, sort of what stands out to you, kind of breaking down each commitment that Auburn has gotten now leading into signing day, and of course how that fulfills some of the areas that Coach Harsin is looking to plug in.
Well, I guess we'll start with Saturday when they picked up a commitment from Northwestern grad transfer Eku Leota. First thing that really stands out, he's a defensive end, edge rusher. He's a guy that should fit well into Derek Mason's 3-4 front, which he adapts his defense, but he's probably best known for his 3-4 front. He's a guy who last season in his 2 seasons at Northwestern, I believe, he had 6.5 sacks, which would put him for the most among any player returning to Auburn's defensive line next season. So that gives them an immediate jolt along the defensive front there in terms of pass rush, something that they kind of struggled with the last couple of years. So that's certainly a big pickup, a veteran presence, someone that you can plug in right away and just add into that rotation. Then last night they picked up a commit from 3-star offensive tackle Colby Smith. That one is certainly noteworthy just because Auburn hasn't signed a high school offensive tackle since 2018 when they signed Cam Stutz, and now Cam Stutz is last season he was listed at playing guard. So really they haven't had a high school offensive tackle sign and stick with that position since 2017 when Austin Troxell signed, and Calvin Ashley was also in that class, and he obviously eventually transferred. They've added a few junior college guys since then, including 2 last year. But just replenishing those numbers along the offensive line, which is something that Auburn really struggled to do over the last several years under Gus Malzahn. So it's certainly a priority for Bryan Harsin and Will Friend and Mike Bobo and that offensive staff to kind of get those numbers back up, especially on the exterior of the line. So Colby Smith, big addition right there. And then today, first they started with a commitment from 2022 quarterback Holden Geriner. He's the first offensive commit for that 22 class. He's obviously the first quarterback commit of the Bryan Harsin and Mike Bobo era. So that's noteworthy in the sense that, this is the guy that they've identified first, that they want to try to build, their vision around for the future. I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn tried to take a second quarterback in that 2022 class, but it's good to see them kind of start to get going with that class while still trying to put the finishing touches on the 2021 group. And then, about half an hour ago, they got a little bit more good news with that 2021 class with junior college linebacker commit Joko Willis, 3-star guy, originally from Troup County, just across the border in LaGrange. Was teammate with Auburn wide receiver Kobe Hudson over there at Troup County. He comes from Independence Community College in Kansas, where he was teammates with Auburn defensive tackle Dre Butler and recent cornerback signee Kamal Haddon. So he's got connections to Auburn. He's from the area. He's a guy that can immediately help in that linebacker rotation next year too. So things are starting to pick up after it was a little bit slow there for a while between the early signing period and the start of this year. But now that kind of Auburn's got its entire coaching staff in place, they know what they want to do. They really hitting the ground running there on the recruiting front.
Yeah, obviously great insight there, and certainly making big moves, especially before Wednesday. So, of course, we'll have a big recap on that Wednesday. We'll hear from Coach Harsin at some point during the day after signing day kind of wraps up. And, definitely a unique year and unique season. And I know there's a lot of excitement surrounding this program and just kind of seeing where things are going. And, obviously it's a challenging time. You come in, you got to replace your coaching staff. You got to come in and fill the holes, and then obviously start bringing in players and obviously also developing a culture and creating the culture that Bryan wants to bring to Auburn with the players that are currently there and developing those guys as well. So definitely an exciting time. We'll keep an eye on that. So flipping the page to the Senior Bowl that happened this week, obviously Kj Britt, the lone Auburn invite that got to participate in that throughout the week, and of course the Senior Bowl game. Just your thoughts on his performance, what you're hearing from the scouts and stuff throughout the week. Obviously, he was coming off a hand injury in which he had to have surgery this season, but by all accounts, it looks like he's on the mend and certainly had a great performance on Saturday. And his draft stock seems to be well intact.
Yeah, I think if you're Kj Britt this past week, went about as well as you could expect it to go, especially after missing most of last season with that thumb injury that really sidelined him from the start of October through the end of the year. So he hasn't gotten a chance to be on the field since that Georgia game back in October. So I think what he was able to do this week, he really answered a lot of questions. Everybody knows him best for his ability against the run. I mean, his nickname for years since he's been at Auburn has been Downhill Britt, just because of how ferocious he is against the run and playing up on the line of scrimmage. But this week he really showed an ability in coverage, in pass coverage. I think Pro Football Focus had him as the number 2 defender in pass coverage this week at the Senior Bowl. I know he turned a lot of heads and probably answered a lot of questions with his ability to just cover those shorter routes and stuff. So I think his stock certainly improved a little bit, certainly helped his cause after missing most of last season. I'm not sure where he's really slotted to be right now. I know a lot of people had him, probably in those mid rounds, probably early on day 3. We'll see if he can improve that over the next couple months as the draft gets closer, though.
Definitely. All good stuff there. And we'll keep an eye on that as well, and kind of where things shake up for the Auburn guys. Last question. We're going into basketball. Obviously a unique season. We're still in the midst of this pandemic. Things, are shaping up to be a little bit more normal as it pertains to the postseason. But unfortunately, Auburn will not be making a run into the postseason as they've, proposed their own self-imposed ban on the postseason. But with that being said, just get your thoughts overall on what you're seeing from this Auburn team. Off to a very slow start, but seems like they're coming on strong, especially with a guy like Sharife Cooper, kind of in the mix, obviously performing really well right now.
Yeah, I mean, this Auburn team these last few weeks since Sharife Cooper's been back is just, a completely different team than the one we saw, the first month and a half of the season, or however long it was. But these last 7 games, I mean, he just changes the dynamic of that team, what they do, what they're able to do both offensively and defensively. He's that floor general they need. He takes command down the stretch. His vision on the court is, second to none, it seems. Even when he was, held in check against Baylor, probably one of his toughest games of this season, he still had 15 points, 7 assists and 5 rebounds, something like that. Yeah. Or 5 assists and 7 rebounds rather. But he's just putting up, frankly, stupid numbers at this point. And you can tell that he he's as advertised, as Bruce Pearl said. He's going to be worth the price of admission. That's something he said about Jared Harper a few years back too, and you can certainly see that. His shot is not quite there yet. You imagine that's going to come with time, but just the way he's able to attack the basket and find open teammates just really opens up a lot of things for this Auburn offense. And I think it's really building a foundation for next season if he decides to stick around for his sophomore year, especially with what they're bringing in with guys like Jabari Smith and Trey Alexander next year, and bringing back this very young core. They're the youngest team in the country this year, and I think that's a lot of what this year is about, just kind of building that foundation for next year.
Yeah, I can imagine there will be a hefty campaign going on to keep Cooper there at Auburn next year and to kind of turn the page and, again, sort of put this one behind them and, move forward from everything. So certainly we'll be looking forward to that. Tom, we appreciate the insight as always and appreciate all the updates. And guys, again, remember, tune in on Wednesday. We'll have some signing day coverage there towards the end of the day. We'll hear from Coach Bryan Harsin and get some thoughts on sort of how they closed out this recruiting class as they look ahead to 2021. Appreciate you, Tom. Thank you. And thank you all for watching.